Hi there, this is Ian from Fyne. We've been asked by our friends at Argyll Holidays to create a video as part of their festival celebrating all things great about Argyll. So today I'm here to tell you a little bit about Fyne, who we are, what we do and why we do it. So thank you very much to our friends at Argyll Holidays for inviting us to be part of this and choosing us as one of the great things to see and do in Argyll. For those of you who don't know, we are just a short drive up from Argyll Holidays in Drumsine. And it's a perfect day out for anyone who's looking for something to do in Argyll, especially on days like today when the weather's great. You can't quite see it here because we're under the shaded canopy in the courtyard, but trust me, it's a beautiful day up at the head of Loch Fyne. So yeah, I'm going to talk to you a little bit about our history, where we came from, and how we've evolved over the last 20 years as a brewery and as a farm at the head of our 4,500 acre estate at the head of Loch Fyne. So yeah, let's crack on and find out a bit more about Fyne Ales. Thank you for tuning in, and yeah, see you soon.
Fyne Ales was founded in 2001 by husband and wife Johnny and Tuggy Delap, who returned to Glen Fyne after spending time in London, with a plan to try and do something with the 4,500 acre estate where Tuggy had grown up. Of course, at the same time as bringing Highland cows back to the fields, they wanted to do something a bit more interesting than just farming, and after exploring a few different options, they landed on starting a brewery. Partly because, at the time, it was felt like there wasn't enough good beer in Scotland. So after quite extensive renovations to an old dairy barn and buying a brew kit from a brewery down in England, they began brewing, and the first brew took place on St Andrew's Day in November 2001. The original plan for the brewery was quite modest, just to produce enough beer for our local area and maybe to send some casks down to Glasgow and Edinburgh in the family's Land Rover and trailer. But it became clear quite quickly that our 1600 litre kit, which is about 2,500 pints per batch, was going to be busy. We picked up quite a lot of CAMRA awards and Society of Independent Brewers awards for our cask beers in the early days, and that meant we went from 2 to 3 brews a week up to 5 brews a week, and eventually by 2010 we were brewing 9 times a week on our small kit. In 2010 we also launched Jarl, which became our flagship beer, and it was the success of that beer and our inability to keep it in stock that led to the decision to do a significant expansion in the early 2010s.
Right, so we're going to try a couple of beers for you today. The first one we're going to do is our flagship beer, Jarl. You might know Jarl already. It's the beer that we produce most of. It's about 40% of our production, sometimes up to 50% depending on the year. It's most known as a cask beer, but you might recognise its green bottles as well, and we recently added cans to the range as well. Jarl was first brewed in 2010 as a one-off special for our Fyne Fest event, our very first Fyne Fest event. But it was so popular it very quickly became part of our year-round range and then our biggest selling beer. I think part of the reason why it's so popular is because it's a single hop beer, it's 3.8% session blonde, and it uses American Citra hops. It was the first Scottish beer to use Citra, the second in the UK, and yeah, when we brought them over from America, they obviously hadn't been used much in the UK before, and it was a bit of a revelation for people in terms of flavour and the amount of flavour you could get from a simple single hop low ABV beer, and I think that's part of Jarl's charm. So let's crack it open and see what flavours Citra gives us. So it should pour fairly clear, nice light blonde golden colour, a bit lively there, but yep, not a bad pour. Now Citra is known predominantly for grapefruit flavours, as well as lychee, some other citrus zest you can get from it as well, but yeah, as you can guess from the name Citra, big citrus character from it, and for us it expresses itself as grapefruit. So the malt bill on this beer is very, very simple. It's simply just pale malt and torrefied wheat. So it's all about the hops, just a nice simple malt bill that lets the hops shine through, and you get that in the flavour. Just a really nice, slightly biscuity body underneath, but then you get this big explosion of grapefruit, as I said, lychee. It's just a great, simple beer, and I think that's part of why people love it. It's because it just delivers so much flavour, low ABV. Yeah, I'm going to go back for another sip. Yeah, and whether it be cask or keg or bottle or can now, you're going to get loads and loads of flavour from a very, very simple beer. Jarl, you can buy it in Scotland, in Morrison stores, in Sainsbury's stores. Obviously you can buy it from us in our online shop, and if you see it in the pub, look out for the green cask badge, or it's also available in keg as well, so keep an eye out for it, because as I said, it's our biggest selling beer, and you'll find it a lot in pubs around Argyll as well. So if you do come up and see us, or come stay in a hotel or with Argyll Holidays, be on the lookout for it in the shops, in the pubs, etc. Because it's very likely you'll find it, as that we make quite a lot of it. So yeah, that's Jarl, and cheers.
So as was mentioned there, Jarl was first brewed for Fyne Fest in 2010, and that was the first edition of our annual festival of beer, food and music. Since then we've had 10 editions of the festival, the latest being in 2019 for obvious reasons. But we went from that first Fyne Fest having 300 people in a small marquee in a courtyard to over 3,000 in 2019, spread across the 3 or 4 fields around the brewery, and using our brewery tap as well, of course. Fyne Fest is a party, there's no other way to describe it. And yes, of course, it's kid friendly and it's dog friendly, but it's just 3 days of the best beer that we can bring from the UK and beyond, of amazing food from some of Scotland's best producers, and a music soundtrack that's designed to complement the vibe of the weekend. So nice chilled out tunes for early mornings, and then the best kind of floor filling acts that we can find to get you up and dancing on your Friday and your Saturday night. It's unlike any other festival in the UK, and we're incredibly proud of kind of where we got to. It will be back in 2022. We've got the dates out. It's the first weekend in 2022, and it's going to be amazing to have people back in Glenfyne enjoying the incredible surroundings, the unique atmosphere that Fyne Fest brings, and of course the best beer, food and music that the West Coast has to offer. If you are planning to visit Argyll next year, be sure to check out thefynefest.com and try and make it part of your trip, because I guarantee you'll have a great time at Fyne Fest. Our Glenfyne home is incredibly important to us as a brewery. It's why we call ourselves a farm brewery. Glenfyne is a really special place, and we're determined to keep it that way for generations to come. So in the early 2010s, when we were planning our new brewery, not only did we want to obviously expand our capacity with a 40 barrel kit that would allow us to brew 4 times as much beer as we could before, but we wanted to make sure that we were doing so in a way that would enhance Glenfyne and not detract from it. So while the new kit was being installed in an old sheep shed, we invested in a number of sustainability and environmental projects that would make sure that Glenfyne continued to thrive. One of these projects was a state-of-the-art effluent plant to ensure that all waste produced by the brewing process was processed and made completely neutral. And at the same time, we did a salmon restocking project to bring salmon back to our river. Of course, all our brewing water comes directly from the hills adjacent to the brewery, and all our spent grain at the other end of the brewing process goes out to our herds of red deer and Highland cattle on the farm. We've also done things like working with the Forestry Commission to create biodiverse forest land on the side of the Glenfyne Hills, and we use solar power to power our offices and our brewery tap. Glenfyne is a special place, and as I said, we want to make sure it stays that way for a long time to come. With our new brewery giving us 4 times the capacity of our old kit, it was time to find something to do with the old brewery. It became home to the Origins Brewing Project. Origins Brewing is about giving a sense of place in the beers, telling our story through the beers. And what that means is that we use a high proportion of Scottish malt and raw wheat for our brews. We barrel age, obviously, in whiskey barrels as well as other barrels. We forage ingredients from the side of the hill and work with Scottish fruit producers to use the best produce we can to add flavours to our beers. And more recently, we have been doing spontaneous fermentation. These are beers that can only be made by us at our special location at the time that we're making them.
I'm back again with our second beer of the video, and this time I'm going to delve into the Origins Brewing Project, which I think you've already heard a little bit about because I did a voiceover for it earlier. But yeah, the Origins Brewing Project is our mixed fermentation project, and it's a series of special beers to kind of celebrate our special location. And this is Home 2019. Home 2019 is the second Gers style blend. And what do we mean by that? Gers is traditionally a Belgian style. It's a blend of aged spontaneous beers, and usually it's a blend of spontaneous beer that's been aged for 3 years, 2 years, 1 beers, all blended together to make this kind of very unique celebration of where it's been brewed. We obviously don't call it a Gers because we're not in Belgium. We call it a spontaneous blend. But you know, it's still a special beer, and it's very much our kind of tribute to that style. Spontaneous brewing is a very interesting process. Whereas with normal brewing, you mash in your grains, your malted barley and whatever extra grains you want. You'd mash them in, you'd boil it to reduce it, you'd add your hops, and then you'd add yeast, brewer's yeast. With spontaneous brewing, the first part of the process is roughly the same, but there's no brewer's yeast added. So we basically put all the wort, all that kind of sugary liquid that comes from the malt, we put that into open top vessels and leave it overnight outside our brewery. Or inside our brewery with the doors open. And the idea is that all the native microflora, all the microbes in the atmosphere will come and they'll settle on top of the beer, and I want to use the word infect, but it's not infection in a bad way. It basically inoculates the wort with yeast, natural occurring yeast, and that yeast has its own flavour character. So what we found in spontaneous brewing that we've been doing now for 5 years is that our native microflora gives a really interesting stone fruity character. Wind's picked up a bit there, so sorry if you're picking it up on the microphone. A really interesting stone fruity character. Yes, the beers can be sour, they can be a bit funky, a bit barnyardy, a bit farmhousey, which works, but mostly it's kind of a little bit sour with a really interesting kind of peachy, ripe apricot character to them. We age all of the spontaneous beer in different barrels, mostly in ex-wine barrels, for different periods of time before blending them together. And this is a blend of 2 different vintages, which are actually 4 and 3 years old. So some very highly aged vintages. But when we're blending, we taste lots of different barrels and try and find the right flavour profile. So Home 2019 here. 2019 is the year it was put in bottle, and it came out in 2020. So there will be a Home 2020 coming out later this year. But yeah, let's try it because I've been waffling on for a bit. So it pours slightly hazy because there is obviously yeast in the bottle, kind of golden, slightly dark golden colour. On the nose, straight away, slightly acidic, slightly very sharp citrus. Bit of wood in there, kind of oaky tannins. And then lots and lots of kind of peach, like super ripe peach. Not the sweetness of it, but like the kind of slightly funky, maybe slightly overripe nature of a stone fruit. It's tasting great. Yeah, again, on the palate, lots of similarities with the nose. You get the acidity is there, and it is a sour beer. So if you're not keen on sour beers, this might not be the one for you, but I do encourage you to try it, maybe get a bottle and share with people because it's got that slightly acidic edge, but then lots of interesting layers of flavour underneath that with the wood from the barrels, with the peachy flavours from our native microflora that comes across all of our spontaneous beers. There's a tiny bit of citrus in there. It's not massively pronounced, but I think that kind of comes with the acid on it. It's a beautiful beer, very delicate, very gentle. Like it's not one of these. A lot of the Belgian style beers, they'll have this big acidity that'll slap you in the face, whereas this is a much more gentle approximation of the style. It is a special beer, and as I said, it's about showcasing who we are and where we are in the beers, and that's what this beer does for me. It's like this beer could only be made using our native microflora from our atmosphere, and yeah, it can only taste this way because of where it's made, when it's made by us. So yeah, cheers. Yeah, beautiful beer.
So that's a kind of run through of the history of Fyne ales in a very brief way, which brings us to today, where we probably should acknowledge how difficult the last kind of 15 months have been for our brewery and for all breweries in the UK. We have learnt a lot and tried a lot of new things over the last year and a bit. One of the things we did was we started selling our venison on our online shop for the first time. So it goes, we produce the beer, which feeds our deer, which now produces the meat, which feeds our customers. It's a nice way of representing who we are as a farm brewery. We introduced our mini cask club, which for those who couldn't go to the pub and get cask beer as they normally would, they had a way to drink cask beer at home because we would deliver it every month for a very reasonable price. We did Fyne Fest at home last year when we couldn't do the festival in Glenfyne, so we tried to bring a bit of Glenfyne to everyone and did a series of online videos for people to get involved with, and had some great fun with that. We've survived. We've made the best of a very, very difficult situation, and we couldn't have done so without the support of our amazing community and those who supported us.
Hello again, so that's me. Thank you once again to our friends at Argyll Holidays for inviting us to be part of their festival, celebrating everything great about Argyll. We really appreciate being able to showcase who we are, where we're from, and what we do here at Fyne Ales on our farm and in this beautiful, quiet corner of the country. For those who are coming up to visit and see Argyll Holidays in Drumsine, please do consider coming to see us. We're open every day, 10 till 6, and yeah, we've got a beautiful beer garden courtyard and our shop as well. We've got plenty of beer for you to load up the car and take down south or wherever it is that you're heading off to. If you can't, then you can always find out more about us and then maybe even buy some beers online at fyneales.com. But do remember that you're always welcome here in Glenfyne, and we'd love to see as many of you as possible. Thank you very, very much for watching this today, and I hope you found it entertaining. Cheers.